So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the speaker today, Frank Chow. Frank Chow is the head of cybersecurity and Hong Kong CERT, Hong Kong Productivity Council. Frank oversees Hong Kong CERT operations and leads the team to deliver a wide range of cybersecurity consulting services for Hong Kong industries. Frank will talk about the IoT Test Lab, an innovative platform that helps manufacturers and organizations to identify vulnerabilities and provide information to do vulnerability prioritization. So let's go. I'm going to pass it on to Frank now.
Good morning, everyone. Well, welcome to my presentation. Well, I need to see my long topic, Safeguarding IoT Device in Digital Age, Building IoT Test Lab. Well, I think everyone have already have your own IoT device. I'm not so sure how many have the smartwatch in here. Wow, so many. And also, if your home have the smart lock, or even in your office have the smart lock, smart entrance, this kind of the IoT, I think every IoT device already surrounding yourself. So that make sure there's a, you need to think about, is it a safe IoT device you use? So that today I would like to share more about the IoT device, the risks, and also how to build the IoT test lab, and then to help you to identify the vulnerabilities of the IoT. Well, here is my little bit background. Before I joined the Hong Kong CERT, actually I work in the financial industry and also consultancy service. So that, well, here is my little bit background. If you want to contact with me, in here you have the email and also the LinkedIn, so that feel free to join my LinkedIn connection. Okay, back to the introduction. Well, you know, on Monday, already have keynote speaker already talk about the IoT device. And then so that, well, I don't want to repeat once again this thing, the IoT. But instead of IoT, also have the industry IoT. Well, industry IoT actually, you know, put it on the manufacturing and your office, and also in somewhere in the smart city. A lot of this kind of thing, you can see the robotic. If you go to the car manufacturing company, the operation branch, actually you can see a lot of the robotic arm, you know, moving, you know, to assemble the car. Actually, it's the one of the IoT. Well, maybe someone maybe called the OT, OT, but actually it's the IoT. Also the smart car. Well, how many of you to drive the smart car? Have the smart car? Maybe, you know, nobody. Well, maybe, you know, this is also important, because if you drive the car, maybe a hacker, you know, hack your the IoT or the smart car IoT. Well, the hacker can help you to drive the car instead of you. So that you need to think about it. Yeah. And also the smart city. Well, I think in Montreal, you can see a lot of the parking system actually using the IoT thing. And also in your country, maybe also the parking slot, the night, the security surveillance, you know, a lot of this thing also using the IoT technology. Well, is it safe? Not sure. Well, and also the smart communication, well, of course. And also smart graph or the smart power, this is quite important. Well, one day, if the hacker, you know, take over the IoT, the OT system for the power plant, well, we are, you know, no electricity, no water supply, this kind of the very utility thing. So that we need to think about it. Well, this is the question. Are IoT devices safe? Well, yes or no. Yeah, quite depends, you know. Yeah, because, well, before I'm working, I was working in consulting firm. Well, yes or no, depends on blah, 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 you know. So that's true. How do you configure your IoT security configuration? This is quite important. And how do you implement the patch deployment, this kind of thing. Well, before you think about the IoT device safe, you need to think about the IoT characteristic. Once you know the characteristic, and then you know the potential security weakness, So let's see, in the web mobile application, well, it's quite similar, to the day-to-day, the IT job, Well, penetration test is not mandatory, so that once the application launched, they didn't do the penetration test. What happened? Well, the hacker is quite happy because a lot of the hacking many security holes so that they can exploit, easy to attack. And also, you still have the weak user or third-party authentication, this kind of thing. Didn't think about it. Also, if your IoT or IoT thing is connected to cloud environment, you still have the very good cloud policy management to safeguard your data or safeguard all the information. Also, the communication. Of course, IoT need the communication. Well, not just only 4G, 5G, this kind of the communication or wireless. Also, has sometimes maybe using the fixed line to do it. So that maybe, but you need to think about a lot of the information is flowed through the 4G, 5G, or even the local line. Is it the secure communication? Is it encrypted or not? So that we need to think about it. How about the smart edge device? Well, denial of service, because a lot of the IoT device maybe is, for example, like the secure camera for a city, maybe talking about more than 10,000 this kind of the IoT security camera, so that they may cause a lot of traffic, maybe cause the denial of service, or is it easy to deploy the secure update? Is it have the poor hardware design? And also the IoT sensor. Sometimes IoT sensor need, limited power, lower bandwidth, because of so tiny and then use very low power consumption. Well, is it have the software implementation fault or inability to update this kind of thing? And also have the data type and how to do the data storage. So that a lot of this kind of the characteristic and also this kind of the security witness. And then how to, to handle it, this is quite important. Well, maybe you say, is it easier to hack the IoT device? Well, from the Microsoft information, they have the example to compromise corporate network for IoT. This is just example, real case example. Well, actually, it's talking about 1 hour to do it. Well, the 0 second, use the slogan. Maybe some people in here also use the slogan to discover your country or your city, how many people using the similar device or hardware device or software. Well, hacker also use the same software to find, is it have the default login credential? And then, well, 30 seconds, well, yes, attacker know, wow, someone using the default credential and then log in. And then also, after around 3 minute exploration, to find the printer and also the CEV exploration, and then get in, and then through the printer, and then to get the credential stealing, and then go to lateral movement to other database server or other customer server, and then after that, and then store the data. This is just only for 1 hour, and then bye-bye. Well, this is quite challenging, for the CERT team or the cybersecurity people, to identify this kind of problem. Okay. Well, one thing maybe we can help actually, because IoT have this problem, so that how to identify or input IoT issue, so that maybe we need the IoT test lab to help on this one. Well, before Hong Kong issued the IoT security best practice guideline, and then have illustrate the IoT the architecture layer. Actually, I have the 4 different layers in here. You can see the application layer, management layer, network layer, and then finally is the perception layer. And then actually each layer have their own function. In the application layer, and then have do the deliver the application service and also to manage the data. And then the management layer is to deliver the IoT service the management. Well. And of course, the network layer is talking about using the different communication or the protocol, network protocol, to transmit things. And then the last thing actually is this, your device, the smart home, the smart city, smart business, and the smart industry. Well, each layer also, have the security control. Like in the application layer, well, application layer and management layer is more closely to the our day-to-day, the IT security. Well, have the web API, OSWAP top 10. Maybe we care about the device registration, software update deployment, encryption, authentication, and this thing. Well, and the perception layer is talking device integrity, software update mechanism, and the mandatory change of default settings, and so on and so on. Well, in the IoT test lab, well, actually can include a lot of the different tests, compatibility testing, device interoperability testing, end user application testing, performance testing, and security testing. Of course, today we are talking about security testing, so that we just only talk about security testing. Well, but another test also important because, for example, like the compatibility testing, well, actually is related to the security. So that sometimes maybe we are, work together, to do the testing. Well, today we just only focus on the IoT security focus area. It's just only the 4 area. It's the device security, network security, data security, and physical security. Well, because for the test lab, actually, later on, maybe you understand, actually, not just only this 4 area. You also have the software side, maybe the binary analysis, and also the coding security, this kind of thing, but it's not include this one. Because our test, right now, the test lab just only more doing the black box testing. That side, well, maybe in the future, maybe we see, how to expand it and then to cover more, code review side. Okay, in the test lab, actually, we divide into the 4 different zones. Well, actually have the sensor and device. Well, you have the smart lock, the smart watch, or whatever, camera, or even the charging station. Also in this area, in this zone. Well, another zone is quite important is the gateway and network. Connect all this kind of the zone together. And the most important one is the IoT gateway, because the IoT is not just only connect, it's not just only the IT network, just the TCP/IP. They may have a lot of the different way to connect, so that we need the IoT gateway to connect the device and also the IT together. Another zone is the testing. Get all this kind of the testing application together, like the network sliver, vulnerability scanner, mobile app scanner. It's quite similar to the cybersecurity scanning. Well, but of course, the library and also another technique may be a little bit different. And the last one is the management zone, so that when you get all this data, the data from the testing zone, and then you need to do the reporting, and then do the correlation, and also do some intelligence, maybe go through the management zone, because this management zone will do some analysis. Well, and then we go through 2 more zones on the sensor device and the testing. Well, the first one is the sensor and device zone. Well, you can see in here, in this side, maybe more focus on the physical security, when you get the device, like the smartwatch or the smart lock or even the charging station, the EV charging. Well, you can look at the device. It has some external interfacing, like the USB port or serial port or other different kind of interfacing. To check this kind of the interfacing, you should have the inappropriate connection. Like the IT equipment in before, when you plug in the console, sometime maybe you can get the admin console and then without authentication in the past. Same as the IoT device, because IoT device, most of the IoT manufacturer, they implement the IoT, they just think about the function. They are not consider about the cybersecurity. They don't know in this world have the hacker. They just think about to make the thing it work, and then instead of, well, is it secure? So that we need to check it. so that we check all the USB, the port, and also any interface include the power cord. You know, some IoT device may use the power cord, the power supply cord to transmit the information. So that we need to take care all about it. And then also, we check about the devices, the shell. Is it easier to open? Is it easy to break? Well, when easy to break it, and then actually, you know, I'm not so sure how many electronic engineer in here. If you are an electronic engineer, you know how to bypass, you got the digital electronic board so that you may use the integrated IC, you know, circuits, you know, to bypass, you know, the authentication or to add something on it and then to change the functionality. So that we need to make sure, is it easy, you know, to change the digital board? So we need to think about a lot of this thing. Okay, another side is the testing. Well, I think this one may be easier for all of you. Well, it's just to check the, you know, like the encryption technique, the technique, is it, you know, come with the standard? And also, you rate the component, is it has the subversion, you know, it's not what you expected work. Well, and also, and system vulnerability, unauthorized access or control is very common to you guys. And also, you should have the replay attack, because we found a lot of the IoT device can use the replay the attack, you know, to issue to accept the replay packet, you know, because they don't have the session management or this kind of thing to make sure, you know, that the replay issue. Okay. We see the penetration, the IoT test lab core software and hardware. Well, in here have the penetration testing tools. Well, the software tools allow you to simulate attack, you know, on your device and network. Well, it's similar to IT, and also the vulnerability scanner. But one thing, penetration test tool, I think is easy, because if you're a hacker or the penetration tester, every time you may use the different tools, you know, to use, so that you don't mind it. But if vulnerability scanner, you know, it quite depends on your vulnerability. Like here, maybe a Nessus, OpenVAS. It quite depends on the library. Is it have the plug-in or library, you know, for this kind of the IoT device or the technology? You need to make sure your scanner, the vulnerability scanner, have this component, you know, for test it. Also have the network sliver. Well, the software tool allow you to capture, you know, and analyze the network traffic. Well, in here, maybe you have already used it, the Wireshark, TCP dump, or out of the three that is more on the POSI side. Or, well, the network sliver is just only the sliver. Maybe you can use the POSI or this kind of thing to make sure you can capture the network packet or the data packet. And also the firewall, well, what I said before, we have the 4 different zones, so that we need the firewall, you know, to make sure to separate, you know, each zone. Well, the hardware device that allow you to create a network topology for testing purpose, and also virtualization software. Because we used still on-prem, well, maybe in the future, maybe we put it on the cloud. But if you use on-prem, maybe virtualization software may be easier, you know, create the virtual machine for the testing purpose can help you to simulate the attack, the vulnerability in a controlled environment. Well, IoT device to simulate the attack, the vulnerability on IoT device, of course, needs this device. But we need to think about it, because what I say, the IoT device is the smartwatch, the lock, or some portable IoT device. In case the device is too big, or outside, or in the your current, manufacturing plant, how do you handle it? So then maybe we need to think about all our this kind of the IoT test lab core software, hardware. Is this portable to move it to the client side, or is it can to relay all the data packet, all the data, you know, sensor data back to the IoT test lab? and also the code scanner. If you want to do the set off or the code scanning, maybe you need the code scanner. Well, and also have the technique for the performing test on the IoT. Well, if you want to do a better IoT test, and then you need building a threat modeling, because the threat modeling help you have a systematic approach to do your testing. So because you need to define the security requirement and also some identify the threat, and then, well, if you do the IoT test for one IoT application, maybe you need to handle the mitigating the threat, something like that. Well, and also the technique for performance test on the IoT, well, the IoT device penetration test. Well, in here, you need to identify the potential attack vectors. Well, in the IT world, if you do the penetration test, well, you can have a lot of the way to do it, maybe through the email, phishing email, to send the phishing email outside to your client, and then to see which stuff, to kick the phishing link, and then you can download the payload, something like that. But, this is quite human intervention. But in the IoT world, the secure camera or the parking device, something like that, they don't have the human intervention, They just only the sensor, just to detect it. So that is sort of quite difficult, to rely on the human intervention to do the penetration test. So that maybe we need to go back to the original, the previous day, we just to have the system through the network, the network vulnerability or other, the boost for attack, this kind of thing. Also, the configuration and setup of the IoT test lab. Well, I think this is quite important. Dedicated environment for testing. Don't expose your IoT test lab, to the internet without protection. So that you need the firewall and proper authorization to make sure you have the separate environment from the internet, from your in-house environment. And also configure the security setting for the IoT device network, firewall, access control, encryption, blah, blah, blah. This quite cybersecurity standard. Well, the last thing also very important because regularly maintain the IoT test lab, by updating device software and security setting. It's also a headache problem because in the test lab, a lot of the different kind of the scanner, network switch, router, this kind of thing. Every time you need to update it, it's not easy. And also because what I said before, actually we are isolated from the internet most of the time, so that we need to make sure how to do the deployment, the patch deployment. Well, this slide I have mentioned before, so I don't want. Well, another thing is the data collection and analysis. This is also one for the important thing is, well, in the IoT data, actually connect a lot of the, the environmental data or capture a lot of the imaging, this kind of thing. So that actually a lot of the noise, when you want to connect the information is related to cybersecurity or the data is useful for our analysis, we need to do the filtering. So that is, we need to spend time to do it because not like the IT, if you to do the IT security or IT hacking, maybe we have already a lot of the people, have this kind of experience. But for the IoT, maybe we need to spend time, to learn the IoT device, the nature, the characteristic before we do the data connection. Okay, this is the IoT testing architecture, from our setting. Well, because we use the commercial one, so that instead of the open source, so that we have more car intelligence. So, but of course, if you use the open source, also you can get the threat intelligence, from a lot of the different places. But of course, You don't have the correlation or checking or fancy, console the console management board for you to display. Okay. And also, I would like to say about the security testing for IoT. Sometimes maybe we need to do the load test with the load test. Why? Because I'm not so sure. Maybe because sometimes the IoT device, like the smartwatch, maybe you set the threshold with the 10,000 steps per day is the healthy standard, for example. You need to meet that threshold, and then the smartwatch maybe send the data back to your app or go to the cloud. So that you need to trigger this kind of the threshold. So that you need to do the load test to make sure you go to that threshold, and then the IoT device or the smartwatch will send the packet back to the mobile app or back to the cloud environment. But sometimes maybe they may, how do you know they are sending the appropriate packet or information back to your mobile app or back to the your cloud, the product cloud environment? So that we need the IoT test lab to help you. Okay, I don't think we don't have time to do it. Well, maybe we also how to integrate with the test set off for the security test of IoT device, but not this stage, maybe in the future, because this talking about a lot of the back-end work to do it, so that we hope one day we can do it. Okay, we don't have a lot of time, so that we go for this very fast. Well, the labeling scheme, the cybersecurity labeling scheme is quite important, for the I think for the consumer or for the enterprise. Why? Because once the IoT device have this kind of the labeling scheme, so that the customer or the enterprise can buy the IoT device based on the IoT's the level, security level. Well, in here, have the Europe have issued the EN 303 cybersecurity for consumer Internet of Things baseline requirement. Also, in Singapore, also have their cybersecurity labeling scheme. So that in here, you can see the cybersecurity labeling scheme in Singapore. Well, they have the 4 tier, and then depends on the tier, so that you can have the different testing. Of course, the first 2 tier is the self-declaration, and then the higher tier, tier 3, tier 4, you need the third party to do the testing. Well, in here is some example from the EU standard. Well, in here you can have some security control, like to check the universal default password, implement mean, manage report vulnerability, keep software updated, blah, 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 this kind of thing. And also, other than EU or other cyber labeling scheme, and a lot of the different IoT standard out there, like in here is the video surveillance system, is also related to the IoT. They also have a lot of the discounted security control, so that maybe one day, if you build your IoT test lab, maybe you can use this kind of the standard and then to apply on your IoT test lab. Well, we also to borrow the labeling scheme to build our own the IoT maturity model. Well, in here, you can see quite similar to the CSA Singapore labeling scheme. And then we make sure, have the 5 level, and then have the grade A production. We need to do all the penetration tests, software binary analysis, and then also based on tier 2, tier 1, and then certain kind of the requirement to make sure, all the thing is based on, if you are production software IoT device, and then you need to go through the 5 tier, and then the grade B, and then you need do the 4 tier, and then grade C do the 3 tier, and the grade D maybe just only do the first 2 tier. Okay. Well, if you want the IoT project, maybe we still can use the IT mindset, to apply on it, like the security by design, compliance, or piracy by default life cycle to apply on the IoT project, so that we can do the risk analysis, threat modeling, blah blah blah, and secure decommissioning, commissioning, this kind of thing. Well, of course, we have a lot of the security best practice out there, so that you can download it, and also have some security testing certification on 5G IoT. Well, you can, if you have time, you can download it and to review it. Okay, that's it for my presentation. I hope the time is just okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions in the audience? Scanning, scanning. Yes, we do.
Hi. Thank you for a very informative presentation. My question is about, there are different zones, and there are you have to focus on sensor, you can focus on the device, you can focus on network gateways and stuff. So how do you prioritize one thing over the other? And and while setting your goals, what is your first priority? Discovering vulnerabilities in the sensor, or your network, or across other zones?
Okay. You mean what is the priority of the to handle the
testing? So basically, when you're testing some devices, so what would be your priority towards would you test sensors or network or?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I think the first priority is for the IoT or the IoT device. I think it's more focused on the IoT device first. Well, because most of the IoT manufacturers actually they are not paid too much resources on the device itself, the cybersecurity, so that we pay on it. Of course, this includes the mobile app, because most of the IoT device actually link with the mobile app, and then we find a lot of the IoT mobile app actually also have the problem. Especially for the encryption, they are not to comply with the certain standard of the encryption, so that if the IoT, well, if the data is not quite sensitive, I think it's okay, because it's just only day-to-day application. But if involve the piracy or involve some healthcare information, I think they need to pay attention, to keep, to up to date their encryption standard. Because I understand, for the IoT device, if you apply the very high level cybersecurity standard, encryption standard, maybe cause the device, the energy and also the power, the CPU maybe not can meet that level. But I think maybe they can use different way, to implement it. Maybe you don't need to give the whole lot of the information. You just give the piece of the information, this kind of thing, or use another thing to replace it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else has got a question? If not, then thank you very much, Frank.
Thank you.
And that's going to be it.